Hannah Oli, Pop Roxx Radio. Estás escuchando Jamie Roxx de Pop Roxx Radio. Manténganse al tanto.
Hej, det här är Hits från Sverige och ni lyssnar till Pop Roxx Radio med Jamie Roxx.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This is the Pop Roxx Radio Talk Show. I'm your host, pop art painter Jamie Roxx, and this is the big show. You found it. Sure, I'm glad you did. And all our advertisers, remember, support them. They're paying the freight for us to be able to do this. And most websites of people that advertise on podcasts and whatnot, they'll have a little thing when you go to the website that says, "The hell did you hear about this?" Just put in Roxx, the guy with the hair, the guy that hangs out with rock stars. They'll all know who it is, and they'll know where to keep sending the checks. And internet economy is trickle down, folks. So they send the checks into YouTube or whatever, and eventually it'll trickle down to me. And that's how we do it. That's how we keep the lights on. That's how expensive food for my crazy expensive dog. Today I'm very excited because we have the lead singer, guitar player of a band that has just blown me away. I was telling him before we went on they don't say on mic anymore, on camera, before we went live on camera, their PR person, Rachel over at Trim PR, had sent me their press kit, and I watched the videos, listened to the music, was reading all the information, and I'm like, a kick-ass rock band out of New Jersey. It's about time. And Phil, who we have on today, was like, yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. Then he's right. He's right. New Jersey's one of those places where you just expect talent to fall out of the trees there. It's good to see it happen. It's good to see it happen. Once again, the Garden State did not let me down because these guys just cool turned up the tip. I am very impressed with them. Without further ado, the name of the band's the Modbeats, and here's Phil. Phil, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Appreciate that introduction too.
I don't lie. It's very true. So this is your first project and the first band you've ever kidding. Phil, he's a veteran, man. He's been in bands and all of this. Paid his dues, as Ringo Starr would say, to play the blues. He's done it, but this is the latest.
This is the first original, I would say. Yeah, in earnest, cover band stuff or stuff. I just playing a long time, but this was the first time I think I needed Joe Mandia from the other guitar player in the band. We met during the pandemic, and he heard I played him a few of my originals, and he was like, I can't believe you're sitting on these songs that are 15, 20 years old or whatever. We got to do something. We got to try to put a band together and see what can happen. So I credit him. Otherwise, this might not have happened. But yeah, anytime if I even was going to go down the path of doing something original or with a band playing original music, it morphed into a Cream Hendrix cover band type situation.
Well, cover bands are great. Venues love cover bands because it packs the venue and people drink and they spend money. I had a friend of mine who, he did the opposite. He was in a pretty big, I don't want to say who it is, but pretty big synth pop band from the 80s. Things happen.
You can't say?
No, I can't say who it is. But, just because there was some deaths in the band. He didn't cause them or anything, but just, if he ever listened to this, I don't want to drudge up stuff for him.
Got it.
Anyway, he wound up, and again, people are like, oh, what's he doing now? He's got to be a big producer, living in a Tony Stark house. And no, he's doing okay. A house in Thailand, but that didn't work out. He flipped it. But anyway, here in the States, he works in a very high-end department store playing the piano, playing covers on he's one of those guys, wears a tux, and that's what he does. Because you got to do something. Everybody likes to eat. He still does some stuff musically too, but not nearly. The record business changed. You remember the Napster years and all that. And anyhow, he was telling me, he goes, people think working in a cover band or doing covers is easy. He goes, the problem is, the hard part of that is everybody knows what you're playing. Got to be perfect every time. If you screw up on Bohemian Rhapsody, people are going to know it. They're going to hear that, and they'll focus on it. They'll anchor on it. And then they're just the whole night. That's all they're talking. So I have a lot of respect for cover bands. But believe me, man, there was a time in my life to paint another Marilyn Monroe or James Dean, I was going to jump off a bridge. You know what I mean? I'm like, I got it. I worked hard to get here, but it's got to be better than this.
Right.
And non-creative people won't get that. They'll say, what the hell, man? Paid, you're making money, you're doing what you love to do. Yeah, I do love to paint. Not the same thing. Over and over, constantly. I want to do something, stretch my wings a bit. I think it's that way for any artist. We can love a project, but honestly, and Phil's probably this way. I can tell he's this way because I know musicians. I know artists. When that project is concluded, his mind is going to the 8 other projects in front of it. We can do this, and PR agencies and labels and all that bullshit hate that because they're like, what are you talking about? You just finished this. We got to promote this. We got to do this. You have to relive this album for the next 6 months to a year of your life.
Easy.
Push all those new creative ideas aside for a little bit. And that kills us as artists because we're like, oh no, that's all we want to do is run. We don't want, but so in that spirit today, Phil, we're going to be rehashing all of this project. Yeah. I'm messing with you, man. I'm messing with you. No, it's because it's new to me. It's new to me.
Right.
It's a really good. Now, this is an EP as it is now, but there's an album coming, right?
Yeah, right now in this new world of the music industry, and as you said, it's changed over the last 25 years or so. The way things were done from like 1956 to 1995 were one way. What we're doing though now in the age of Spotify and streaming is we launched this thing June of last year, June 29th to be exact. We're putting out singles.
Smart.
The plan was to put out, so we recorded 10 original songs that are going to make up the full-length LP vinyl that's coming out September 5th of this year, 2025. So we will do a single, sometimes a B-side on the single, sometimes not. We stretch the timeline out a little bit and we get into it. Like we had along the way 2 opportunities to record cover songs. It's funny, you mentioned about the cover thing. One of the things we like to do is if we're going to do a cover song, say of a Bob Dylan tune like we did with Just Like a Woman, we can flip the script a little bit and make it our own. And so I even did that in cover bands where you still know what the song is, but you put your distinctive stamp on it. And I think we did that with Summertime Blues for a Short Point record up in Asbury Park.
Nice,
and so those came out and we got a little bit of a runway there. So it extended because it's all about now extending. And some people do this waterfall thing where they put out every single song. And then when the album comes out, that becomes the vinyl. We're not quite doing that. We still have a foot in the old way of doing things. I've always loved
throw something new in there. Give people to get the album.
Even in the CD era in the 90s, like bands like Oasis, and before then, like the Smiths, and certain bands, especially from the UK, great singles bands. Like you would get the single, and the single might have a B-side or another different mix of a song. And I love that. We're not quite there, but I would love to be there. And part of our strategy is that. So we are building toward the full-length vinyl release September 5th, which I'm super excited.
Releasing singles like you're doing is the best way right now, given the current landscape of building fan base. And we live in an age, yes, we all found out during the pandemic, the last couple of years, that one of our uncles or aunts is incredibly racist. But in the heart of hearts, we really weren't that surprised, folks. Let's be honest. We saw that coming. But and people bitch about social media, and it is a pain in the ass. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours of my morning, every morning. There's no day off. Whenever I'm shipping a painting to New Zealand or some fucking place, I'm like, that's because I'm marketing globally. You know what I mean? Hanging out with cool bands when I was a teenager in the 80s, hanging out with people like Phil, cool, played through the best parties, I knew the most girls. I'll look at them. How could they not? And I'd be like, hey, I want to go see the band. And they're like, Jim, you're going to have to pay like everybody else. Our business. If we were selling Cadillacs, you wouldn't expect a free car, would you? But they're like, here's a stapler, here's a staple gun, and a stack of flyers. Hit every light pole in town, and then we'll let you in. You can run the merch table. And I'm like, okay. I did that. Today with X and Blue Sky, whatever, you can go boop and deliver 8 times as many flyers with the hit of a button, and it's global. It's amazing. Now, you guys, I looked at your socials. When the kit came in, I do all that stuff. I look at all this stuff, Instagram and everything. Like, you guys have this social. No, Phil, either you're really good at this stuff, you got a team, or there's got to be a teen girl with a cell phone or something in the mix there, because I could take notes from you guys.
I appreciate that. Honestly, so I'm going to throw out a plug to our drummer, Fizz, right? It's a great drummer name, Fizz. Incredible,
Absolutely.
right? But his other talent is he's extremely savvy when it comes to tech. Without him, we wouldn't have been able to do some of the stuff. And I'll also throw out Center Cut Photo, is a friend of ours, this guy Mike Nicholas, who does tremendous work, 35 millimeter footage. Sometimes you'll see some of our photos, album covers, things like that. So we've been able to leverage some things. That said, social media, we really didn't know what we were doing as much. Instagram is our focus, but people will say to us that we're not even on half of these things. We don't have a TikTok. We have YouTube, Instagram, and sometimes we mimic things on Facebook, but Instagram's our main thing. Right. So I appreciate you saying that, but I think we're more quality over quantity. You don't post every day. Right. You don't have that ability to. Yeah. But
my wife knows all that stuff. She'll tell you the time to post. It's my wife's 15 years younger than me. She grew up with a phone in her hand. You know what I mean? I remember pre-cell phone or smartphones. I had a flip phone for a while. Thought I was Captain Kirk. I don't know why those went away. I still think they're cooler. Anyway, that's just me. But she knows all that shit. She knows. The other day, I'm like, God damn it. I said, I'm trying to post this post on Instagram and it keeps deleting the entire post. It's just the picture. And she goes, oh, you got too many hashtags. This is how many the match you can do.
What is that, by the way? Because I don't even know.
And so, I'm like, what are you telling me? I got to go through and count all the hashtags? And she goes, first off, you're hashtagging everything. You only can hashtag the importance. And I'm like, everything in my post is important. She goes, the word "the" is not important. Don't hashtag that. And so she gave me this site. I'll send it to you. And it's, you take your thing and you copy and paste it into the little space there, and it counts all the hashtags for you and highlights them. And then it even has a little thing. Would you like to reduce 75% of these? 25%, whatever it is, and AI or something. I don't know what the hell's computer. The files are in the computer. What does it? It's amazing, though. It's amazing. I think it's cool. The other thing I think is cool is, now I don't know if you guys have utilized this, but I've talked to so many people in the music business, bands that aren't even in the same town. They're like, yeah, I figure out the beat, and I send it over to the bass player, and he lives 4 hours away, and they just send files, and then they get together once a week or something to rehearse, and then they go on tour for a month and a half, and then everybody's back home. But I'm like,
the technology's, yeah, it's been cool because nowadays, in some ways, it's harder to make money and monetize certain things, but you can get your material out through Instagram. Like, we built a nice following just in 6-8 months, whatever it's been. And you learn quickly, like certain posts, if you boost one or the other, and sometimes you get, I don't know, however many likes, and sometimes it's 100, sometimes it's 20. It's right. And so you get that feedback too. It's like having a focus.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Speaking of monetization, I learned one of the things that everybody lacks whenever I do an art show, and this when I do solo shows, right? I don't really do this with group shows, but one of the tricks I learned many years ago, probably the early 90s or something, I was watching a friend's band play, and I saw that they were selling a shit ton of t-shirts. They had a merch table that was making money. Cash, right to them. I'm sure that they declared it all and put it in the bank and everything. Anyhow, they were making money. And so years later, when I'm doing my thing, I'm doing art shows, and I'm going, selling $1,000 painting is great, but all I could focus on was I was imagining all of the $20 t-shirts that weren't walking out the door. But I said, I could do the same thing here, even easier, because I've already got the graphic. I just got to find. So I did. I found a merch company and been with them since 2007 now. And we have a merch table. We sell keychains and shit, beach, whatever. I don't care what it is. If people want it, they can. But about a year ago, I started reading in various places and online and stuff that my band friends were running into merch fees from venues. The venues was trying to say, okay, we want half the merch money you're making. And I'm like, ain't that a bunch of horse whatever?
Yeah.
That ain't cool. That ain't cool at all.
I haven't been seeing that.
I was going to say, is that on the East? Have you been seeing that on the East? This is on the West Coast. I've been seeing it.
Okay. Yeah. No, not yet. I don't believe so. I'd have to check with Scott, our bass player.
That's good.
Bring his name in it. He's in charge of that. Maybe. I really don't think so. In nominal at best, but I should know, but
I'm telling you, folks, merch tables, sometimes I've known bands, that is what gets them fed that night, gets a hotel if they're lucky, and on to the next venue. That is cash that comes in. Not everybody, and these days, hardly anybody. Maybe Taylor's, I'm sure Taylor Swift or somebody does. But not everybody has these big record companies writing checks for everything. Or making loans to the band for everything that they have to pay back. A lot of people don't know that, how that works. Yeah. But sometimes a big record deal.
So many have been burned on it. More people have been burned on that than haven't. Oh, but yeah, we've done well with the t-shirt thing, actually. I think that we did well with that. We're doing more of them, actually. They're
especially an East Coast band. East Coast girls are going to wear rock jerseys. And that's a walking billboard, man. That is you can't pay for that kind of advertising. You can.
East Coast girls are hit. We really dig the styles they wear, as they say, right?
It's very true. It's very true. Everybody's got their pros and cons, but the East Coast usually has a little more pro. One of the things I do like on the business side about working with folks from the East Coast is there's not the flakiness of and I'm not throwing shade at anybody. This isn't an opinion. Have known people in California that'll say, I'm flaky, it's how I am, California. I'm like, no, I don't know that's how you are. And I'm from Detroit. We throw people in 55-gallon drums and into a river for this kind of shit. You know what I mean?
Great music in Detroit, though. We could talk the whole hour on just how great Detroit is.
Growing up, every barbecue was Motown. Your Philly soul was really hot too.
Yeah, but you never get Delphonics fan. Oh yeah, huge Delphonics fan. So Philly soul, and honestly, there's some of that running through us. We've done covers of that ilk. We love Motown and Stax and Philly soul. But Detroit, you have all the Motown, but then you have Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheel.
Great rock and roll, yeah.
MC5, DD Pop.
Absolutely, Alice Cooper started out there. And the thing is, then when I was a teenager, things happened. And it's so funny because I explained to people, I'm like, at the time, the factories were still going, and you'd go through Detroit and you would hear a beat constantly. It never stopped. It was the presses and the machinery, and it was just always just in the background. And suddenly techno springed up, and you're sprung up. And I'm like, yeah, of course, because we've all been hearing that for as long as we've been along. And then the dance music scene Chicago kind of took it and said, oh, that's cool. Let's make it bearable to listen to, turn it into house a little bit. And believe me, gentlemen, you're going to be making out with girls to this for a long time. And we did. But yeah, there was a lot of rock. And it's weird because I remember getting out of college, moving out west, I was telling you about before we came on. And I went to LA the first time, and I had lived on Headbangers Ball every Saturday night. I was like, God damn.
Ricky Rock, yeah.
Limousines, hot women, stripper-looking women in spandex. I got to go there. So I went there, but it was the mid-90s. And I'm like, what is this? And they're like, Jamie, things have changed. You should have been here 10 years ago for that. Now you can listen to this guy who's heartbroken on a stool, playing acoustic guitar. That's the scene now. Jesus Christ, I got to get out of here, man. I got to get out of here. Terrible. The only other time in my life akin to that, I had went through a terrible breakup. This is probably mid to late 2000s. And I, mad and on a whim, moved to Las Vegas and discovered there's a huge rockabilly scene. But I'm going through a busted up heartbreak. This was one of those ones.
I love rock. You see that guitar right there?
That's what I'm saying. That's what it reminded me of.
Essential. I can't shake it. That is a huge influence.
All hell's broken. And I'm going to all these rockabilly shows, and all they're doing is singing Johnny Cash. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is the most I want to jump off a bridge. This is terrible. And one night, this concert promoter I knew, he's like, fuck it. We're going to spend the money. Let's go on the strip. We're going to some fancy clubs for you, Jamie, just to get you out of this funk. It was $100 cover, but it was worth it. Met some women we could not afford and had a great weekend. A weird weekend. But hit Burning Man the next month. Every era has their thing. But one of the things that is a constant, what I love is a good rock band and a good bar band. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. One of my favorite bands ever is Jay Giles' band. That's what I consider a bar band. You know what I mean?
The best. And the fact that they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, weird.
I mean, first I look at The Purse, Looking for a Lover. Their covers, Ain't Nothing But a House Party. All that stuff in the 70s is tremendous. And then a lot of people remember them for Love Stinks and Center Bowl, which are also great. But there are early records given to me. Gosh, phenomenal.
But when I hear your guys' music, and I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression of what I'm saying, and we're going to play a track here in just a second so you guys don't. One of the things I like about the Modbeats is your sound isn't dated. It's fresh. It's new. When you get to be my age, you appreciate new shit. You know what I mean? It's cute the first couple of times it happens. You're like, oh yeah, so this has come back around. I'm seeing this again. It gets sad when it's the fifth time you're seeing a trend. You know what I mean? You're like, Jesus Christ. How am I still? I feel a stat at the end of Interview with the Vampire when he's freaking out. You guys aren't like that. It's new and it's fresh. But it's got the same spirit, the same soul of these great bands like Jay Giles and MC5 and stuff like that. It's rap music and it's a little catchy. And I think that's a good thing. I was excited. Things and I listened to what I had and I'm like, let's play that again. That is fantastic.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Really, sincerely.
Do you know? Well, you have to know. Let me ask you this. Here's a question because a lot of people probably will be curious to know this. When you write, we're going to play a track. You know what? Let's just play it. Then I'll ask this question because we've got Setting Suns, Fairweather Friends, and Rocking Chair. That's what Rachel wants us to play. You got to do what Rachel says. That's just a part of the gig.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
What should we hit everybody with first?
I would say Rocking Chair. It's an early song I wrote. That's one we can start with.
Oh, that's awesome. Here it is, folks. We're going to play that right now. Check this out. This is Rocking Chair. I dig all of these, but yeah, this is a really good one. Here it is. We'll talk about it when we come back.
Laying low, hiding from myself, and letting go. I've been living somewhere else. The time had come. I think a change was due. My minds are blown by the smell of sweet perfume. When I'm
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. That was Rocking Chair, the Modbeats, fantastic band out of New Jersey. And yeah, I like that. Phil's with us. He's the lead singer, one of the guitar players from the band, and the front man. But the rest of the band's extreme. I don't want them fading into the background anyway. They're extremely talented in this band, and it shows. Tell us, you had mentioned you had written this as one of the early ones. Is that usually how you guys work with the song? Is you do a lot of the writing?
Yeah, so all 10 of these songs on this album, the forthcoming vinyl that's coming out, they're all mine. I wrote and composed them. There's one song that was written by myself, composed. I did a couple of lyrics, but then a buddy of mine wrote most of the lyrics, so that's a co-write. So all but one song are my songs.
Gotcha.
So, and 8 of the 10 songs I've had, they were probably written, maybe not totally finished, but somewhere in that I'm going to give away my age here, but that 2001 to 2005, my college years. And
was playing at every club you ever went to, Sandstorm, over and over. I remember those times.
And it was just, these songs were just taking up real estate in my head. And quite frankly, I've got more. I've probably amassed 2 or 3 albums worth of original material that was just in my head until this project came about. Now they can, and part of the fun of when we were in the studio in 2023 and 2024, earlier in 24, was to like manifest these songs from just being played by myself or friends and family, or maybe a few had been played out
or something.
Yeah. Rocking Chair was the early one. I just,
that was a cool period of time artistically. The sun had finally broken through the clouds of grunge. And I'm not putting any of this down, folks.
Right.
But understand, grunge music hit in the 90s and it infected everything. If you go back and watch any movie from 1994 to 2000, and you'll be watching it through a yellow or blue filter, and it'll be gritty as all get up, you know what I mean? David Bowie dropped an album outside during that period. And it was all gritty and grimy and cigarette ashy looking. But I'm just like, Jesus Christ, even Bowie's caught up in this maelstrom of grunge. So it was the effect of grunge. Then 2000s hit, and this is what he's talking about. He's writing this stuff. The sun came out. Things started to change. The grittiness kind of started going away. And it was a very optimistic, we all survived Y2K. That was a good thing. I had a lot of students. And part of me was, it's a financial institution. Get on board with that. But no, it didn't happen. Didn't happen at all. But we all were hoping. It was an interesting, I would say up until the real estate crash, that was a lot of good music was created in that time.
And yeah, that's a great point. So the way I saw it, I was in middle school. The grunge thing was big, early mid 90s kind of thing. And then there was this period of time, and I'm not going to mention any names, but like a lot of people my age at the time, believe it or not, they sold a lot of records or whatever. But in the wake of the grunge, Kurt Cobain, Soundgarden breaking up, whatever you want to call it, that era. But let's call 1997 to 2001 for American sort of music bands that were played on like your FM rock station. Let's say that might be my least favorite time. I had to look at not only indie rock, I worked at an indie record store at the time, but thank God we had music coming out of the UK in that window, which would have been Pulp and Oasis and Blur and the Stone Roses,
the Britpop stuff,
hanging on, and that stuff was great. So indie American rock at that time, British rock or British music at the time, Radiohead, that kind of kept me into it. And then I just remember I was in college, and right after 9/11, it might have been like a week or so, we come back, and I'm in the student center, and there's TVs. It was actually the cafeteria, and they had MTV2 on, that channel MTV2. And I saw, I don't know what I was looking at. It was like, oh my gosh, this looks like kind of the Rolling Stones, or is it the Cars, or is it television? It was the Strokes doing Last Night. That, you know, and I saw that. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's hope.
Yeah.
Like, so
I was in a lesbian club. There was some lesbians I knew. They said, hey, you come here. What it was, the reason I was there, folks, is it was a Thursday night, and this was in Denver, Colorado. This particular club, I don't even know if it's still open, so I won't mention it, but by name. But they had 5-cent beer night. You got a little plastic cup about yay big for a nickel, and it was full of beer. It was draft beer, but me being me, I went up to the bartender and I'm like, okay, I want $4 of those, and you keep the other $1. How about that? And she kind of looked at me, and I added a 5 to it and said, okay, the other $1 plus the 5 is yours. So then we were friends. But over the, they had used to be able to, these clubs had bought these videotapes, and it would be like, here's what we want you to play this month. It would have a month and a date on it. It would be all the latest hits. And it was the Killers. Somebody told me, and I went, holy shit. I had not had a reaction to music like that since the first time I heard Nevermind in my car driving. I turned the car around, went to a record store that Phil would probably have worked at if he lived in Detroit, and talked to a cool guy who knew everything about music. Every record store had cool guys who knew.
It was like High Fidelity.
Yeah, it's very true.
It was like, right.
And I went in, I'm like, I don't know what it's called. They didn't, because they used to not say the name of the record or the single on the radio, and just to build up hype. I don't know. But that's how they did in Detroit. And I went in there and I'm trying to understand some of the lyrics. Like, but here's the tune, and I'm humming the tune. And he's like, here you go, kid. Out of here, mullet head. And yeah, it was great. But no, I remember the Strokes. Yeah, all of that. It was like that weird thing where they had all the lead singers. It was either feeling like the Strokes, or then they had the ones like She Wants Revenge that would have that kind of talking, not singing thing. They're just telling some story. It was the weirdest thing. Yeah, that was a fun period, man.
Yeah, you mentioned 2004. That was the Killers. Franz Ferdinand and the Killers. All those bands were out then. It was exciting. It was kind of, I know Morrissey had an album called You Are the Quarry in 2004. That was great. I just remember it was like getting toward the end of my college years, and just from there, you went back and discovered like Roxy Music and Sparks, and it was a good time as well for what I call indie alternative. And that,
well, you realize that your band, the Modbeats, this conversation will be happening not between Phil and I, but between two other people, so maybe a gal, who knows, 5 years from now. This conversation will be happening. And they'll say, 2025, when the Modbeats hit, yeah, it changed everything. All of a sudden, people started not using Pro Tools and playing a guitar. It was amazing. That will happen. And you're at ground zero. That's why I tell people, go support indie artists, go see shows, because you never know. I used to know this guy named Scott. He had an auto detail. He used to detail my car, and he had a story. He had seen Guns N' Roses play with 150 other people when they were starting out. That was his story that nobody believed. I believed him because he always told the truth to me that I knew of. I had no reason not to believe him. But you go to some show, you see some band, you never know, man. You might be getting your unbelievable story that you will be telling at parties for the next 50 years. I'm going to have a story. I was talking to Phil from the Modbeats. He had him on the show. Remember those podcasts I used to do? Shut up, Jamie. No, you didn't. Who'd you have next? Would you have Rush on too? Come on, get with it.
Yeah, I love Rush. I went to the side thing. I loved Guns N' Roses. I went to Slash, I think 3 times for Halloween. Major influence when they came out.
Guitar player, you got to.
Yeah, they were pre like the grunge thing, but they were a rock and roll band. They were of the time, like they were the Stones of that time, and their music, the production, everything. Like for me, I just like Duke Ellington said, there's only 2 types of music, good and bad. So like to me, I don't look at any. If it's good, I like it. You know what I mean? And it's funny because even when the grunge thing was happening in the mid 90s, I used to remember saying, "Oh yeah, Nirvana, yeah, that's good." But you ought to check out the Doors. You ought to check out the Beatles. For me, I remember the first time I heard "A Day in the Life" in John Lennon's voice, which is I started getting chills.
Absolutely, I remember that same time, right around a couple of years off. But all these, I opened this store, a clothing store called Mutiny. They had a pirate punk rock theme. I thought that was just brilliant at the time. Right. Anyway, I had all these little young weirdos working for me. Looked like a hot topic kids, and they had fallen out. That was the problem. That's who we were selling to. And they were all telling me about Marilyn Manson. And I wasn't much impressed. I watched a video. I'm like, pretty good.
I don't know
Like,
much of stuff, actually.
they're like, what do you mean? How can you have that reaction? He's the most unique. Dude, he's dressed like his sister. He's got a girl named. Let me introduce you to Alice Cooper, who did this 20 years ago. You know what I mean? There's some people before him. There was a cat named Little Richard. Black guy, wearing makeup. It was like, really? This is, and I'm like, okay.
The architect
Here is
of rock
Ziggy
and roll.
Stardust. Here is Ziggy Stardust.
Little Richard, though, really, the architect of rock and roll. I never get sick of it.
Absolutely.
His stuff, just literally from 56 to 58, that's pretty much his original run. And every song is like a standard. And so that, when you said rockabilly and the rhythm and blues, rock and roll, Little Richard, Chuck, the first class of rock and roll, Buddy Holly, that never gets old for me. I've been listening to that forever. It's foundational to what we do. Like, you'll hear that in our music somehow. And I love that as much as I love everything that comes after it. To me, nothing beats
it's
rock and roll.
And folks, I'm telling you, on that same vein, and I know a lot of people that like my art and this and that. I know the crowd. You weirdos. If you're going through a heartbreak, nobody will understand your pain. Go to the record store, or now I guess stream it, go to Amazon, whatever you got to do. Pick up a Hank Williams, not Hank Williams II, not Hank Williams III, or Hank Williams III. The original. He was a young cat, same age as Kurt Cobain. And I don't know her name. Some woman did him wrong, and he channeled that, baby. There is no more. He will understand your pain. Tired girl, doesn't matter. I know everybody's like turns their nose up at country, but there's some country that is just mainline into emotion. You're like, Jesus Christ. I can't remember the name of the song, but there's some country song I heard one time about this guy, and he's trying to get home to his wife, and he's riding this horse, and there's I think it's called The Blizzard, and it just keeps getting worse, and we've only got a mile to go, and at the end, they find him dead, frozen, him and the horse, 100 yards from the house, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me?
There's some tremendous talent in country. So you mentioned Hank Williams and that sort of style, right? That Western swing where rockabilly, it's a mix of rhythm and blues, jazz mixed with country. I love the Western swing subgenre there. Hank Williams has that in his band, the Drifting Cowboys. His stuff is fantastic. And then right now, honestly, Chris Stapleton is massively pop. But I got to tell you, as a guitar player, he's one of the best players. His tone is incredible. Like, he's almost his songwriting, his voice, and his guitar playing. It's like a triple threat. And his talent to me is what I don't use this all the time. Shocking talent for an individual. Like
almost
Ray
like
Charles.
Clapton-esque type.
Ray Charles had shocking talent to me. When people, I try to answer the question because it's like, how do you say who your favorite is or who you think is the greatest?
Right.
I always say Ray Charles because to me,
no matter the context is.
Yeah. So it's because of his diversity of genre, the way his piano playing, his voice is the most soulful voice, and all different types of genres and all. And then when he cooked, man, like that R&B, like his stuff for Atlantic Records, and then he went into country and Western, he did everything, and he could just sing the alphabet, and it would be beautiful. And his playing is killer.
You're a real good vocalist as well. And let me ask you this. Now, you got the looks and all that. Probably a lot of that's genetic. I imagine you hit the gym and shit and all. See, I chose the easy art path. Nobody gives a shit what I look like. They just care about the painting. I can get away with shit. Like, really? He's eating another piece of cheesecake? Yeah, I am. Enjoy your toast. But with your voice, it's really, first off, I know people that watch the show get sick of me saying this, and I beat it over people's head. I don't care what you're doing. There's very few shortcuts to anything to success. I know you watch The Voice and everything. Believe me, you don't listen to any of those people who won on the radio today, do you? It just doesn't happen.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's one of those competition type shows.
Yeah,
but you got to work. You got to practice. You got to, and whatever you're doing, if you do it a million times, you're gonna get good at it. It's just naturally gonna happen. But you got to put the time and effort in. And I'm sure Phil will say, because he's a great guitar player, that just didn't happen. He wasn't roller skating and fell and hit his head and suddenly, this isn't an episode of House, he could play. But notice whenever that does happen in the movies, something happens and it always goes away. Don't base your life on an episode of House, folks. I'm not saying go out and get lupus, but I am saying practice whatever it is you're doing. Get good at it. Learn your skills. But with your voice, you've got a great voice. You take care of it? Is there not a lot of Jaeger shots or smoking or...
No, I'm fortunately, I looked at some of my musical heroes and said, I think there's an element of people that think, Jim Morrison, Drag Gallant, I'm going to do that or whatever. And I love the door. But anyway, I wasn't. And luckily in New Jersey, Bruce Springsteen being a bit of a role model, he might have the occasional drink, but anyone who knows Bruce, I have a good friend who's his father and Bruce are like this. And this guy works out every day. His diet is like on point. And I bit of that.
Yeah. It has to be. You're on stage and running it and around. Yeah. And a good front man ain't just going to stand there. You know what I mean?
Mick Jagger's in tremendous shape. There's the reputation, the Rolling Stones, drugs, and obviously Keith or whoever had their battles. Mick Jagger, since the late 70s, has been running 6 miles a day. The guy's in tremendous shape. He's not...
The 85 now or something?
Yeah,
he's still out there doing it.
Yeah, this notion that he's not... But there's no such thing as effortless style, as I like to say. It's all in the craft. So if you see it's not just, Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones, they're known for this or that. No, he works hard at it. It's thought out. There's no surprises. He takes care of himself. That's the bottom line.
Did you see... It was going around social media. I don't know who filmed it. It was one of those shorts, those reels, or whatever they call them. And it was James Hetfield from Metallica. There's a Metallica show going on. The guitar player is doing a solo. The band is still playing. But he doesn't have to be up there because it's a 5-minute guitar solo. You know what I mean? So somebody filmed him with a phone or something. And he's backstage, and he goes backstage, and he's got his guitar hanging there, and he's taking a well-deserved break. He said they have a little desk thing set, and he sat down, had a cup of coffee. Wasn't snorting lines. There wasn't a bunch of grouping. There wasn't no nonsense. And then that's my cue. And then because he heard it, and he runs back up out there and continue. And I'm like, yeah, drank a cup of coffee. He didn't do a bunch of nonsense or anything. But the people that created the myths of nonsense, the Great Whites, Guns N' Roses, I wouldn't throw them in the same caliber as Motley Crue. They created that myth of that party life. Let me tell you, folks, as someone who lived pretty fast for a couple decades, you can live that life a few days in a row, but then you're going to crash hard for a day or two. It's not nonsense. Those guys did it. I don't know. They all survived for the most part. A lot of them didn't, but...
that's the sad part. A lot of them didn't. And when you think about it, the ones that they were probably living it, and the ones that, survived are probably taking better care of themselves than you would realize. You said something about the voice. It's funny. I never wanted to be a singer. In fact, when I was in high school, I always wanted to be like a Jimmy Page. That's what I want. A Jeff Beck, the lead guitar player, maybe the occasional background singer.
The heart and soul.
Yeah. And I just kept thinking, I'll find a front man. And never did. I just never could find a peer that could do it. And all along the way, I would just always sing Lennon tunes. John Lennon's my favorite musically, and his Beatles, his voice, everything. You might hear that sometimes in my thing, and I say good, because that's what I'm trying. It is a version of that. And so, no, I've never had any training. I've never taken a voice lesson, none of that. Now, guitar, I think, for the last 30 years, I've picked up a guitar every single day, whether I play for 10 minutes or for 2 hours. I don't think, maybe if I had the stomach virus and couldn't get out of bed, but I pick up a guitar. I've got them all over the house, and it's just become an obsession since I was in the 6th grade.
Let me ask you this question, because I'm curious. When I go to any art show or a gallery or something, one of these things that usually my wife takes me to, one of those husband chores that you got to do. I'm big on art shows and stuff, to be honest with you. It's what I do all day. If I was a chef, I wouldn't want to come home and just cook all day. But when I go to a show, like the Terminator, understand the shit out of everything. I'm looking at paintings, and I'm going, oh, he did this way, and I'm figuring it out as I'm looking at it, repainting it in my mind on what it took to do that. Are you that way with music? Are you, because I see the obsession in you. Are you that, do you hear a new piece of music and you're like, well, okay, and you're analyzing it?
Absolutely. And we have a playlist out that we did this year. Like we called it the Score of 24. We picked like our favorite songs that came out in the year 2020. So every year people think I'm just rooted in the past. I love blues and jazz and 50s and 40s. I am. But every year I always find new music I like, and I'm analyzing it. The band members will tell you too, I'm just obsessed with all facets of it. I'll talk about the production, or this sounds like this. When I really love something, I love it. And when I don't like something, I don't like.
Well, during the pandemic, I got on this because I ran out of shit to watch on TV. So I started watching these weird YouTube channels and stuff. And I found this one. I'm not in the music business other than what you're seeing right here, folks. I hang out with some musicians, talk to them for the podcast, and I'm friends with almost all of them. The thing is, so that's the extent of my knowledge of the music business. It's totally from the outside looking in the window like everybody else. I found this YouTube channel called Produce Like a Pro about home production and music production in general. I found it fascinating. So I'm binge watching this. Drove my wife crazy. She was, Jesus Christ, really? We're watching this again? I'm like, it's this or Alaska. You know, you want to watch them build a fire or hear a story about the police and staying in Stuart Copeland?
That.
Yeah, that's no question for me.
I could listen to that all day.
Yeah. And so I started, but what I discovered, and this is shocking, ladies and gentlemen, this is shocking. Phil won't be shocked by it, but you guys at home might. Music production's hard. You have to know your shit. A good producer has as much talent as Phil does with that guitar hanging behind him. Differently, though. Yeah, it's a different thing, but he still has to know, how all this works and everything. And I'm not throwing shade at the show. If you're into music, I don't know if it's still around, but I'm sure the videos are. Produce Like a Pro was called. And there's some episodes where it's an hour and a half talking about miking drum kits and stuff. And you get this tone if you do this. And I know and it is. It doesn't only sound boring to someone out of that world. It probably is boring. But I found it fascinating.
Yeah, I'm like that with guitar tones and vocals. So obsessed with doing that. But honestly, our engineer we worked with is a guy named Nick Szymanczyk of Asbury Park, Lake House Studios, where we did the record and the two covers. He's almost like a member of the band. He's working all the Pro Tools, working the Dons. We mastered the tape. This guy is just this. And again, it's one of those sort of serendipitous things that having gotten connected to him was another blessing because he really got what we were trying to do. So
that's cool when that happens. That's all any artist wants is they want their audience, no matter who they are, what kind of art they're doing, to get it. They're trying to express themselves through whatever it is they're doing. And when somebody does get it, it's like being kissed on the cheek by a pretty girl, man. It is, there's no feeling like it. Let me ask you this, because Phil, you've got it together. You're the real deal. And you're successful. And you're a guitar player. So I have to ask this. I'm going to ask you a hard guitar player question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Let's do it.
Being all of these things, a polished professional and still a rocker and still a good hang, do you still have a milk crate in one of your closets full of guitar cords that are broken? They're expensive, so someday you are going to get them repaired. But we all honestly know that will never happen. But it is going to take up space in that closet.
100%.
I know it. Every guitar player I've ever known.
Yeah. In my basement, I know exactly what and where, what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Did you go through a phase in your life, in your career, where you became pedal happy and you were like, I must own every pedal known to man, and then I'm going to start making my own?
Yeah. So it's funny. I've gone through multiple boards. I don't have a huge rig. Right now, I've got one sort of long line of a board. I had a 2-level board, but I am not good. In fact, I just had I commissioned someone to put together the current board I use for live gigging and for studio made it look very professional. Everything's tight. It can't come apart. The power put so really cleaned up. Mine was a little bit more of a mess. In terms of, I need someone to help me organize. But yeah, I'm not one of these crazy. If you watch, so let me back up. You were talking about during the pandemic, there was some great stuff on YouTube, like rig rundown shows where they go through. Like Brian Setzer's rig from the Stray Cats. I'm a huge fan of the Stray Cats. His rig is minimalist.
Really?
And then other players who had the most complicated rigs. Eric Clapton's rig is simple. Buddy Guy's is simple. So my favorite sort of players
is when it's clean.
More simple rigs than folks who have a 3-level board and this and that.
They think they're Neil Peart with a fucking drum kit.
Now, that being said, I do especially when you say Rush, like I think in a prog sort of situation, one of my favorite guitar players is Steve Hackney, original guitar player for Genesis. And I see him every time he comes around locally, and he's big. He does like 3 nights in the region. And yeah, and he's got like probably a 2-level board, and he gets unbelievable tones. So I think in that world, it's cool to have a lot of that. And I do have a board of, I don't know how many pedals, but yeah, you do get obsessed with tone. I think I'll never stop. I've heard Eddie Van Halen said in an interview, you never stop chasing tone.
No.
Yeah.
And Phil, you seem like the kind of guy, the guitar player that you mentioned you have all these guitars and whatnot, and you can hear them totally different, I would imagine, than I could. To me, it's, okay, it's a cool riff. It's a cool guitar part right there. But he's like a dog with smell, folks, is what I'm saying. All guitar players are like this. It's like they have extra nerve endings in their ears, and they're hearing stuff that we're not hearing. And it's cool to see. One of the things I'm envious as an artist with musicians that I know, because the other thing is just in what you're doing. Now, you know what? We should play another track. I'll finish this thought. One of the things, and youngsters watching this, understand this. The first time you kiss a girl or whatever your thing is, I don't care. Doesn't matter. Whatever music's playing in the background will be burned into your brain. And there'll be a little piece of you that'll say, yeah, that's when it stopped being good, all this new music. You know what I mean? Because you've got this reinforcement. And that type of music you will like for the rest of your life. And like other stuff, but there'll be a core thing. Now, what I'm jealous of is, Phil, you're making that music. You're having that effect. Nobody has that effect with paintings. Nobody's going, oh, kiss this girl, and there was a Cezanne painting on the wall. No, nobody remembers that. But they all remember what song was played.
Are you sure? Sure? I don't know.
I don't think there's much kissing going on in galleries, but there is at a rock show. There will be at a rock show coming up. Where's my notes here? Anchor Rock Club in New Jersey. That's on the horizon.
It's a big gig. We're excited about that. That's this Thursday night. That's a great venue.
Now, I get that when you play live, things happen and every show is different and whatnot. But for the most part, you probably got it all figured out on them. You've already played that show in your mind, I would imagine, to the extent you learn it as a band, all of you.
So we launched this officially last June. So our live show, because we're playing to new people and we do have a core set. That being said, we do private gigs, and we have done gigs at places. We've won in Philadelphia the day after Thanksgiving. We had a blast out in this area of Philadelphia called Manayunk, a place called Dawson's. I think they might be the only place left in Manayunk that's hosting original live music now. But anyway, played a 2.5-hour set, and we threw a lot of covers in there. It was like our Beatles in Hamburg kind of a thing. We would play originals and covers, and that was so much fun. So we have the ability to probably 2 or 3 hours if we wanted to in terms of material, between originals. And the originals we're playing pretty much the album, and then a few songs that are slated for a second album. Then we'll go into doing covers. But like I said, when we do covers, we just don't do them to do them. We try to put our own stamp on them while still retaining what the song is. But
When I was in high school, I was friends with these guys who were in a band, and I got him the gig, actually. I was helping them out. I don't want to say I was in the band. They asked me they said, you've got the look, lots of girls with that hair. We want you on keyboards. And I said, I don't know how to play keyboards. They're like, no, we'll program everything. It'll all be it's just stand there and look. That was my role. So cool. And I knew this girl that her parents had given her the go ahead and some money to have a graduation party. So I booked the band. Trouble was, the band knew 3 songs. And it was an hour. So the band, and I stood up there with them, we played the same 3 songs like 10 times, over and over. We didn't know anything else. Right. The one guitar player pulled out a book of popular music. I couldn't read I didn't know what, I'm like, what are all these? They're pretty notes. I don't know what they mean. They were all trying to do it, but it was a terrible thing. But yeah, so having 3 hours of music, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I've seen where that doesn't happen and thought we were going to get beat up.
Yeah, I have standards too. Like in terms of if I were to go out by myself and do an acoustic set, I do a blues thing. We don't really take requests. One of the things I like to do is also take songs from the 50s, 60s that maybe haven't heard in a while. People don't know British rock tunes, mod tunes, psychedelic tunes, and give them our flair and modern take on it. I love doing that.
That's fun. That's phenomenal. Let's play another track because I'm gonna already get an email from Rachel. I know it, man. We're going to play. We've got Fair Weather Friends now and The Setting Suns. Which should we go with next?
We'll do it in the order they were put out. So do Fair Weather Friends.
Here it is, folks. This is the Modbeats, Fair Weather Friends.
Caffeinated highs
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing, amazing. That's a cool trip. Let me ask you, folks, these tracks we're playing today, these are all available, right? People can buy these.
Yeah, you could download them and buy them on Apple Music, and then it's streaming across all platforms. On the Apple Music, we have Dolby Atmos masters of the song. So if you have the ability to listen to spatial audio or the right headphones or the right system, you could get the versions will work there.
Nice. And folks, remember, when you buy, and it's one of the coolest things, say you're working, I don't know what you do, ladies and gentlemen, maybe you're working in an insurance office or something, you're selling Xerox, doesn't matter. But Brenda, 4 cubicles down the hall, she's got it going on, and it hurts her birthday, and you forgot. Now, yes, you could rush out on your lunch hour and be like every other guy in the office and buy her a card, maybe some flowers or something. She's going to forget, you're going to be one of the crowd doing that. You got her email. Whenever you download music, you buy it, the MP3, it says, where should we send this? Put in the email where this is going. Put in Brenda's. If you really want to be cool, and Phil will tell you this because we used to do as kids, splash out on old Brenda there, spend the $20, and make her a mini little mixtape. Will show up in her. She'll remember that. Because it always worked so well for whenever Phil and I. It's probably how Phil met his wife.
Not far off. Yeah.
Did you make her a tape? A CD?
We definitely bonded over music, and she was very hip, for sure.
Nice. So you are such an eclectic musician and such an eclectic fan. Is she the same way? Is she into everything, too? She got to tell you about Boss Skaggs and how he was actually pretty cool. That was
very, very taste, and also, and we're pretty obsessed with Paul Weller and the Jim and the Mon thing. And so she was into Jeff Buckley. And so that to me, that's the album from '94 we haven't talked about. It was great. So we Live at Chennai, that album, the deluxe edition came out, which was like a double disc. We just obsessed over that. And very much.
Me and my wife, when we first got together, I was surprised they didn't do more The Darkness. We were both into that thing. I'm like, this is real rock. Rock and roll is back, baby.
They were part of that same era. 04, 03, they were coming out.
And she was into that. Yeah. And then she lost me. She's, have you heard this Korn album? I'm like, no, it's not really, And then we started floundering a little. Let's listen to The Darkness again. Okay. We were back on track. And then I introduced her to the Smiths. She had never heard the Smiths. She's young,
great band.
And
they're really popular right now with a lot of, still, it's a college thing. People in their 20s, and Johnny Marr, I hear his guitar influence everywhere. And he's great. He's one of my favorite players as well. I think, he's name checked like Roger McGuinn a lot of times from the Byrds, another big influence on us. I play one of my guitars, I play on the album live, Rickenbacker 360 12 string, just like the one McGuinn played when he was in the Byrds before he got your model. And I love Johnny Marr.
For you youngsters out there, Roger McGuinn, even if you pick up that from Rio, that's a great album, start to finish. Phenomenal music. Listen to us old timers, kiddos, is what I'm saying. We're talking about
Byrds and the Smiths. So that sound is like it. You thread that needle from the Byrds and you take it to the Smiths. And when they were
you wouldn't have the Smiths without the Byrds,
and Oasis and all that, and the Stone Roses, and you still hear that today. So that line, that sort of Beatles, Byrds. All right, then you go into folk rock, jangle pop, power pop, new wave, British. It's all in that line, and I hope people think we're part of that line.
You had mentioned how you're a Beatles fan. And that's something that freaks these young kids that I hang out with. Is I'm like, the Beatles did every genre. I don't think there's a genre of music. Tibetan throat singing. I don't think they did any of that. They might have on the White Album, somewhere in there, in the background of number 9. But that's one of those bands that, and I think it was a flex. If truth be told, I think they were like, we are the biggest band in the world, and we are going to do it. Rocky Raccoon, here you go. Here's a country song for you. You know what I mean? Done it.
Right.
Not a problem. Next. Great.
They have no filler. Every track, even like Revolution 9, I'll leave it all when it comes out. It's just there.
The Beatles are one of those bands. You look at musicians and you're like, okay, where are the Mozarts of today? Where's the Beethoven? They're out there, people. Music's different. Believe me. If Mozart had the technology we had today, he probably would have been a trance DJ. He would have been using a different instrument, but he didn't have that. You know what I mean? And they're out there. You gotta listen to as much music as you can and check out different genres. Shouldn't have any problem with it. Like I said, my wife's younger than me. I ride in the car with her. She plays the Sirius XM, or whatever the pop station is. And it's the weirdest playlist in the world. There'll be a country song, and then it'll switch to hip hop. And then they're doing music from Wicked musical. You know what I mean? I'm like, Jesus Christ, gives me whiplash trying to hear all this back to back. But they're all single driven. And then you look at their playlists and you're like, Jesus Christ, it doesn't change. This is how kids are listening to music today. What is wrong with people? No, and I think it's great. My generation was very genre specific. I was a new wave kid. If I wanted to listen to Adam Ant, I wasn't telling any of my rock friends. I would go home, shut the door, put that on, you know.
Anyone who knows me, though, and I will say this is one of the things.
Record store, though. You were the cool. Of course, you knew everything.
Now, but you know what, though? Anyone who knows me will tell you. 1 minute I could go from listening to Nick Drake to Motorhead to Muddy Waters to the Smiths. And I was asked this question. We did a radio spot last week, and the DJ's great guy. He said, "What is your guilty pleasure for musically? What's your?" And I said, I don't believe in guilty pleasures.
No.
Anything, every music I like, it's ABBA, whatever it is, I wear it and I fly the flag. Like there's nothing I would be ashamed to admit.
I'm that way now. When I was a teen, I really wasn't. Yeah, guys. Yeah. Randy Rhoads. That's all I listen to on guitar. That's all. I'm like you. I go home and I just listen to Blizzard of Oz. And I did listen to it and I like it. But honestly,
I like the Black Sabbath with Dio, actually. They're my two favorite talk about.
Man, a lot of people talk about that era was great.
Heaven and Hell and the Mod Rules. Notice, I love the first two Sabbath records with Ozzy, and then I love those two records. Because his voice and then the songcraft on those two albums, there is no dud on there. I might even like the Mod Rules as much as Heaven and Hell. And people don't know that about me. But yeah, I love that.
Oh, it's fantastic. When he was popular, I was a kid and I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I could listen to any Dio track or watch any Dio video and go, he gets it. He gets it. That's his life as a crazy elf. What did he look like? What? He looked like something that would crawl out of the forest and play a flute, and probably could. Let's play the last track before we get too far afield. This is an apropos track for being the last track we're going to play. The Setting Suns, although it's different. Should we play and talk about it, or you want to lead into it? How do you want to do it?
Yeah, I'll just, real quick, this is one of the ones that wasn't written back then. This was written around 2017 or so. We had just come back from seeing Paul Weller, who was in the Jam. I had this riff idea that was like Jeff Beck in the Yardbirds inspired, and I kept playing this riff. And I was like, there's a song in there. And I married, because there was all this craziness going on at the time in terms of news, politics, and you didn't know what was truth and what was not. And so I married this like escapism in terms of, there's this very New Jersey thing, this Bruce Springsteen, hey, we're going to drive off in the car with the top down and go somewhere. And that, I can't shake that either. Because when you're from New Jersey in the suburbs, when you get your license, you get your car, it is the symbol of freedom. Car is
and you drive everywhere. You go on 12-hour road trips.
Driving culture. And driving off into the setting sun. And I thought, wait a minute. There's a cool little play on words here with the Setting Sun. Setting Suns is my favorite album by the Jam. And what I did was in the second verse, I took song titles and made a verse out of it from that album. So it's a tribute to my favorite band, one of my favorite songwriters. At the same time saying the world's gone crazy and I don't want to partake. I'm just going to get in the car and blast my favorite album, Drive Off. And so I married the two, escapism and the Jam.
Yeah, beat it. And that's entertainment. I'm kidding. Here it is, folks. This is The Setting Suns by the Modbeats. Check it.
not made to. Fake news, there is no time for truth. Well, I say you're the only girl for me, and the future ain't what it used to be. So let's ride.
And we're back, folks. And we're back. Fantastic. And he's right. Phil is absolutely right. I almost called you Paul because we're talking about the jam. I almost said that. It's got to be. But no, Phil is right. And I see this all the time, and especially the kids I mentor in the art world. In art, no matter what kind of art it is, there's two avenues you can take as an artist. And really, this is the atomic structure of all. You can comment on the world, or you can distract people from. Both are as equally as important, but that's the job. That's what you're doing. And yeah, the world seems really crazy, and believe me, you'll hear old timers like me go, "We've never seen it." No, we but we run around at the fall of Rome too. I'm sure there were Romans saying that same shit, you know what I mean? But sometimes you got to just jump in the car and put the top down and put on some tunes and go. You just have to.
Yeah.
What are those Australian Aborigines? Got to go on walkabout for a minute. Clear your head.
Yeah.
It may take 4 years. And I'm not saying do anybody dirty when you do that. Take care of your responsibilities. Folks, I could tell you, I remember being in Paris, France. I went there for a week. I had to give a lecture on pop art at this big museum. And this is a month after my father's calling me on the phone. Your wife you have responsibilities and stuff, son. You got to come home. I'm like, yeah, but I'm working in a bar. I'm painting. I'm in Paris. You got to come home. He was right. I came home, you know what I mean? But I didn't want, that was a long plane ride, I'll tell you that. But, you know, but sometimes you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to just get a change of scenery for a minute there. Catch your breath. This is great. Your music's a great way to do it. Maybe that's why I like it so much. It's good music. Who was it? Duke Ellington said that you had mentioned it's good or bad. This is good.
And yeah, it goes back to what you're saying too. For me, if I liked it, I didn't get caught up in a this or I'm a that, which when you were growing up, I was growing up.
A lot of people did.
Right? It was almost like, hey, if you're a metal guy, you're a metal guy. You're a hip hop guy, you're into the Cure. And I touched on all of it. And that's one of the things I'm proud about. I didn't like limit. At that time, that's one of the things I look back and you have a bad haircut, you have a bad this, but I look back on the musical taste thing and I can honestly, I don't have any regrets on that.
That's good. That's good. And that's why Phil had good parties and knew a lot of people. I bet when Phil threw a party, you go to it. It would be one of those. And this would happen in my life every so often. You go to a party and it wouldn't be genre. It would be everybody would be at the party and there would be no nonsense. Nobody's fighting. If somebody looked at somebody's girl the wrong way, that could maybe happen. But on just general principle, hip, what the fuck is, I'm sure it feels hard.
No, there was, because there's just great hip hop. I think lately that's an area where I just don't get it. But the 80s and 90s, there's great stuff.
I remember when sampling first dropped and everybody, all the old timers that in my life were all like, oh, they're just stealing somebody's music and everything. And then the jungle scene out of the UK happened and Aphex Twin said, oh, really? Hold my beer. Not only am I going to steal everything, I'm going to reverse it, rework everything. You'll have no idea and he'll do it 87 times on a trip. And you're like, holy shit, this likes it. Maybe or start liking it or giving it another look. Music is interesting and it's cool. Out of all the shit that happens in the world and that we're seeing, there's still good music out there. There's still good bands. And there's still people working real hard to make that good music. Tip of the hat to you, Phil.
Yeah, you have to look for it. You have to go looking for it a little bit more as the years go on, but it's there, 100% there. You have to just be into it. You have to know where to look a little bit more. But when I think back in the early 90s, before the grunge thing, MTV 120 minutes, that wasn't exactly the mainstream to know about Replacements or the Stone Roses and bands like that. And you always had to put a little bit of an effort. I think when Nirvana hit, it really solidified, hey, this alternative of what was underground is now out there. Yeah. And at the same time, like in 94, Nirvana Unplugged was on the MTV Top 20, but Eric Clapton from Cradle, which is like my favorite Clapton record. It's just heavy blues. It's tremendous covers out. Like I loved that year because I remember Tom Petty's Wildflowers, Clapton's From the Cradle, but then REM Monster was on there, Nirvana Unplugged, Soundgarden, Super Unknown. It was just a great time for like eclectic music in 94.
Period. And it was getting, yeah, man. I remember the first time I went to a wedding reception and heard REM. I'm like, when did this happen? This wouldn't have been possible 10 years ago. I mean,
right.
It's very strange. But look for it. REM. And because I'm sure all the Spotify executives are watching our podcast here, but you never know. Maybe a secretary is or something. Tell your boss, cool feature, they'll hate this idea, would be the ability to turn up the algorithm. Because how that algorithm works when you just play it on random, it's playing the same type of stuff because it figures that's what you like. Now, have the ability to turn that. Don't let the algorithm influence and choose DJ for you. You know what I mean? Get out there. And the best thing to do is join people like Phil's Instagram or something, because he's the cat who will say, hey, if you dig this, you might want to check out this. He's that guy. And you'll learn a lot. You'll discover new stuff. And I think that's cool. Change your life, man. It could change your life. Now, Phil also, speaking of life-changing things, he's a rock star. He is wearing today, I tell every kid I meet, you want the first part of changing your life and stepping into the cool, no matter how you do it, go get yourself a leather jacket. It has to happen.
Or 3.
Or 3. No?
Yeah. It's actually warmer here today. One of my trademarks, though, I wear all the time is my Shot 519 motorcycle jacket. That's my number one jacket.
Absolutely. You got to have a cool jacket, man. I remember I had done this girl wrong in high school, and she had my jacket, and she was breaking up with me, and she just didn't say a word to me, walked up to me, and I vividly remember this, looked me dead in the eye, dropped my jacket on the floor, stepped on it, and walked away. Didn't need to say anything. That's sad enough in front of all these people. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm never going to live this down. I'm never going to live.
The clothes, a lot of the British bands would tell you too, the clothes are just as important as the music sometimes. The fashion.
One of those.
Yeah, that's part of, first of all, I was surprised the name the Modbeats was even open. I just liked the sound of it. And when we were looking, and obviously, to me though, one of the things I like about it is on a Hard Day's Night when the interviewer asked Ringo Starr, are you a mod or are you a rocker? I'm a mocker.
Yeah.
The name the Modbeats to me is like that. It's like we like the 60s mod thing, Beatles, British thing, but the beat thing is it's the mods plus rockers. It's like, why do I have to choose one? It's all of it.
And you like the jam, and it's a jammy type name, you know what I mean? I could see that on a similar bill. It's cool. It's cool. You got a great website. We're
American too. You know what I mean? That's a British thing. But after the Beatles, British music, every generation, there's bands that, you know, and the cultures are so connected, I feel like, especially and in that indie world and new wave world too. So there's always that connection between the UK and the US, but we love that and to try to marry the two. But it'll be what it's going to be because we are British, we are American, we are from New Jersey, but we love that. So that comes into our sound, just where we, as an example, we have songs, there's cars, there's that sort of driving off somewhere. That's less so in a song from Britain because the car is important. Yeah.
It's not. The car is every bit important in American culture as a hamburger or a telephone. Because that car, like you said it, car in American culture, when you get your car, it's freedom. It's freedom, man. You can go work some shitty job, washing dishes or waiting, whatever it is. But you get out of that shitty job, you're in that car. Even if you don't do it, there's the possibility of doing it. Of screw it. I'm going to LA tonight, baby. It's going to happen. I remember driving across the country many years ago, and I was in in the UP of Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, and I stopped at this little diner to get a cup of coffee and some things. And I was going to LA by myself from Pittsburgh or someplace. It was a long drive. This was like day 2 of it. There was a little girl waiting tables in there, and you could tell she wasn't happy. And I don't know what happened. I didn't at that point. Found out later, but. And she goes, we're bullshitting. She goes, where are you going? I'm going to LA. She goes, oh, I've always wanted to. I'm like, it's a Jeep. The top's down. If you got a bag, you're more than welcome. What's the worst that could happen? You pay $100 for a bus ticket, you know?
And what happened?
She went with me. She lasted till Minneapolis. And then she started feeling guilty. And I dropped her at the Greyhound station. And
there's absolutely a song in there.
Oh, yeah. That was just, it wasn't any adventure. It wasn't a Julio Iglesias video or anything. There wasn't mobsters after us or that I knew of. But yeah, the car is so important. You guys are important too. It's a great band, and I want everybody to check it out. And folks, remember, when you find a gem, when you find somebody that you dig, and you like their stuff, the reason you're friends with the friends you're friends with is common interest. Your friends like the same type of stuff you do. So let them know. Get the word out, man. Add your found treasures to your playlists and stuff. Post that video on Facebook or wherever you're at, TikTok or whatever. That's what my wife tells me to always tell people too. You got a cool TikTok. You can always put cool music behind it too. And there's just give credit on there who it is. Help get the word. And enough of us do that, the Modbeats are going to be making album number 3 before we know it. Yeah, get to them too, because before they get that Tony Stark money in the house on Malibu. Now, Phil'll still be cool if he's in an infinity pool or not. He may start collecting classic British motorcycles or some weird shit, but it'll still be guitars. It'll be guitars.
The infinity pool will have to be in New Jersey, so I can only use it half the year.
Or be rich enough to heat it, put a dome
I
over
can't seem to leave. There's something about this area. It's convenient. You just don't leave. It just pulls you back.
It's central. You can still hit DC. You can hit New York. You can Philly. It's all right there.
The Aloha State of New Jersey, as I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. The great thing, it's obviously doing well for you. You guys are all making really... And hey, let's run down who's in the band, because we didn't do that. You know what I mean? And we don't want any hurt feelings. I don't want crazy emails from Joe or something. No,
I think we drop their names here and there, but yeah, we can do a recap.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So you're guitars and lead vocalist.
Yeah. On this album, I wrote the songs, I sing them, I played most of the guitars on the record. Joe also plays guitar. He's the inspiration why this even happened. Joe Mandia. He's got a cool looking Gretsch just like this. Yeah. Then we have Scott Madison on the bass. And then we have, of course, Fizz on the drums. And if you like any band or any music, you have to like the drummer's the most important part. And Fizz is he's a human metronome, as we call him. He's great. Now, in the studio, before he came along, actually, we had a guy named Santo Rizzolo who played percussion on the song. And he was great. And then we also, if you listen to the songs, we had Brian Herring. He's actually the organ player for a really big band called the Gaslight Anthem. They're huge.
Oh, wow.
He's singing background vocals and harmonies with me, and he's playing, depending on the song, Hammond B3, Mellotron, Vox Continental. We have organs and such, and piano throughout the songs you'll hear. And that's Brian Herring. He's a full-time member of the Gaslight Anthem. We're in the studio with him, and he might be the I've ever worked with. He's got perfect pitch. He's a student of the game. He knows all the sounds that we needed, and his vocals incredible too. So he really added so much to these recordings.
Cool thing. A couple years ago, I read a biography, which wasn't well written. It was just a bunch of interviews that David Bowie had done, and they just put them in a book form. And I was reading it, but one of the passages I found very interesting is some interview. I asked him, he said, hey, you've had so many hits. For an art musician, an art music type guy, you come out with a lot of hits. What's the secret? And he laughed and he said, hey, he goes, when you work with the very best musicians, it increases your chances of success 1,000-fold. And he goes, and that's what I do, is I work with the best musicians. And it sounds like you and the guys are like that. You know what I mean? Your game. I don't know if it's experience. I can't see you. I don't know. Maybe you're like Sting, and I can't see you and Fizz fighting like Sting and Stuart Copeland in the studio. All those crazy stories. But
yeah, I think some of that's tongue in cheek. Like when Stuart's, you see all these videos knocking. I think they have this almost like smile about it between them because they're so great. Sting actually is and I love Bowie. Let me backtrack. And I think I have that book as well. It's Bowie one. And I love him. But Sting is another like Ray Charles shocking talent. He is just
no matter what he was going to be doing, he was going to be the top. Listen to Message in a Bottle, folks. If you've never heard any old Police stuff, that's a great song. Shockingly great. If you do get married and you're going to retro vibe, do not play Every Breath You Take at your wedding reception. I've been to too many marriages, and it's always a precursor to what happens. Listen to your wedding DJ. Warn you away from stuff like. I was at a wedding one time, and the father of the bride and the bride were dancing, and then they rocked out to She Shook Me All Night Long, and it was one of the most disturbing things I'd ever seen. I'm like Springsteen. This happens. It's a trope now. It happens so often. These people, they're like, we're playing this. Yeah. Born in the USA. And I'm like, have you listened to the words of that? That is not patriotic song.
I'm surprised because that's one of those ones where I was a kid, and that was a huge influence. Was that was Born in the USA, and but as an adult, you hear those lyrics, I'm surprised that went over so many people's head at the time because it
pretty obvious.
It seemed obvious what he was trying to do there, but it didn't, turn out that way.
I'm telling you, the first time I heard The River as an adult,
that's my favorite of his albums, by the way.
I shed a tear just because I knew that, especially that track. I knew people, that was their life. That is what happened.
I just love the sound. I love the sound of that record. Steven Van Zandt was huge on that. So it's got that 60s garage rock, British rock, like power pop. To me, that's peak for me. E Street Band was The River. Darkness in the River, but The River album, everything, the production, there's 12-string guitars. He allowed Steven Van Zandt to get a lot of say in on that in terms of the production. And that's my favorite. As a Jersey guy, my favorite Springsteen album is absolutely The River.
Before we started doing the show, I was telling you my father-in-law is a huge Springsteen fan. And it was funny because his college roommate, they went and saw Springsteen for the first time. Hey, let's go. This guy's playing down here. And the college roommate saved the ticket, the flyer. Not the ticket, the flyer. And he got a hold of me. And he goes, I know, we've all heard you're a really good painter. Can you paint this flyer? And it's been a while. This was from 1974 or some shit like that. And it was pretty crumpled. And I'm like, I said, you want me to leave some of that crumpled in there? And yeah, that might be cool. And for Christmas, that's what he commissioned me to paint that flyer.
That's great. You have a picture? I'm going to see it.
Yeah, I'll send you one. They kept it, all that. He kept it decades and whatnot. And my father-in-law, Christmas morning when he opened, we all videoed it. It was a big thing. And it just you can see the memories flood. He's a Jersey guy and he's into that. So that's going to do it. I forgot to mention, we have clickable links in the description below. Of course, the Modbeats website's probably been flying all over the screen as we're talking. I don't think that's clickable, but all the links below are and whatnot. And there's even a link to Trend PR. If you need help on the PR side of things. I don't know how it works. You got to pick up Rachel's dry cleaning, wash her dogs. I don't know. Do whatever it takes, though. Get them in your corner because they're good people to have in your corner. All the most successful people I know are working with them. So it behooves you to as well. Anyway, we'll see you next time, everybody. Have a good one. The Modbeats. And share their stuff. Keep an eye on them because I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did. It's very exciting. I'm excited for you. So, yeah. Break a leg this Thursday night. If you were in the greater Philadelphia area, and what that means, folks.
Philadelphia area, yep.
Yep. Everybody on the East Coast. I was in college in Boston. I drove to Philadelphia to see the Sisters of Mercy with 8 other people and a half. Go see these guys because you never know. You never know. And you'll kick yourself when everybody's talking about them and you stayed home that night. Jeez, don't tell that story. At least lie about it at that point. But no, don't have to lie. Go see the show. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Additionally, the world's a weird place. Be patient with people and be kind. You throw stuff out in the world, hopefully that's what comes when we can all use it. So be cool. We'll see you next time.
This has been pop art painter Jamie Roxx's Pop Roxx Radio Talk Show. It has been executive produced by Jamie Roxx, recorded at his studio in Deerfield Beach in South Florida. All rights reserved by Pop Roxx Limited.
Hannah Oli, Pop Roxx Radio.
Estás escuchando Jamie Roxx de Pop Roxx Radio. Manténganse al tanto.
Hej, det här är Hicks från Sverige och ni lyssnar till Pop Roxx Radio med Jamie Roxx.